Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm looking forward to Mindspeak this Saturday at the Sankara Hotel here in Westlands from 9:30 a.m. We'll be hosting St. Paul's Property Trust PLC. The founder, Richard Britton Long, who actually was born here in Kenya, and several officers from the same PLC. And they are a UK-focused property company investing primarily in UK government and quasi-government occupied properties. Interesting portfolio strategy, long and short lease AAA rated assets outside of central London. They believe this is a niche opportunity in between traditional institutional buyers and private investors. They call the long lease assets platform properties. They also buy short lease assets, and these are known as opportunistic properties. And this is where they believe that the lease will be extended, but because it's now come down to 5 years or less, institutions are not able to hold it. Targets properties let on full repairing and insuring leases to the UK government. Looks at quasi-government tenants such as doctors' surgeries, and basically looking to sell shares in this property PLC to Kenyan investors. So do come along, and there'll be a lot, I think, that we can talk about. I think one of the key issues is surely the FX rate. What is Mindspeak? If you don't know, do have a look at that link. Macro thoughts I wrote over the weekend. This week, everyone will be keeping an eye on the Federal Reserve, chaired by Janet Yellen. At the start of the year, the Fed was predicting 4 quarter point rate hikes through 2016. The markets are pricing in 2 rate hikes in 2016, and the markets will pivot on this Fed decision this week. I think they might not do anything but put out a hawkish statement. China is drafting rules for Tobin tax on currency transactions to curb capital flight. Andy G said the levy will hurt market sentiment and make investors more panicked, as this shows that existing capital controls are not enough to curb outflows. Now is not a good time to roll out a Tobin tax, as the market is already concerned about whether China will be able to increase capital account convertibility in the coming years, and this is another step backward to achieve that goal. I like this photograph that was tweeted by Kenya Pics, and the credit goes to Iconic Media Sunrise in Nairobi. And then this is from Kenya Pics, one of those lone wonder trees the Maasai Mara is famous for. The last time we were in the Mara was a long time ago. It was February 2012, and I wrote a piece about it, my extraordinary experience in the Mara. There are 2 parts to it, and it was extraordinary. I was reminding the girls of what we saw, a herd of more than 100 elephants. We were surrounded by them. A lion in a flash run after a warthog, catch it, and then we heard it crunching the warthog's bones. We were that close. And there's a little link to a video of a Maasai bush dinner, a dance where they caught us unawares. The hyenas were howling not too far away, because I'm sure they could smell the meat. Let's move on to political reflections. Vladimir Putin's announcement on Monday that Russia will begin pulling out of Syria appeared to take the White House by surprise, and probably Bashar al-Assad. Let's get back to that in a moment. Just 6 months after he threw international relations into a tailspin by launching airstrikes in Syria, Putin on Monday declared that the tasks put before the defense ministry have been completed overall, adding that he had ordered that the main part of Russian forces in Syria would be withdrawn. White House officials were left scrambling, with Press Secretary Josh Earnest punting on questions during the briefing and others trying to quickly gather information. We have seen reports that President Putin has announced a planned withdrawal of Russian forces from Syria. We expect to learn more about this in the coming hours. A speedy Russian exit from Syria would confound President Obama's talking point that Putin had walked into a quagmire. Putin has repeatedly confounded Obama over the past 2 years, from his March 2014 annexation of Crimea to the military campaign in Syria. US analysts and intelligence officials failed to anticipate either move, to Obama's chagrin. In a news conference last month, a Bloomberg reporter asked Obama whether he'd been outfoxed by Putin in Syria. Obama replied in part that Russia's airstrikes were demonstrating the weakness of Syrian President Bashar Assad's position. Russia seems pretty convinced that it is mission accomplished in Syria. And I concluded by saying he's finished like he started, catching everyone off guard. Put up a photograph of Putin listening to his Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov during their meeting in the Kremlin in Moscow. Joshua Landis was interviewed in NPR and asked, withdrawing the main part of Russia's troop deployment to Syria, what do you think he means by that? Landis says, well, it's not quite clear, but he's sending, in a sense, 3 messages, it seems to me. 1, he's establishing that he's a statesman. He wants peace. He's willing to meet America halfway. He's also letting his people know in Russia, at home, mission accomplished, I'm decisive, I'm a leader, I've come, I've done what I got, and I need to go. I'm not going to get stuck in a quagmire. Secondly, it's a shot across Assad's bow. In a sense, Assad's people were very confident only a week ago that Russia was going to take them all the way, help them reconquer all of Syria. In a sense, Russia's saying, we don't have to do that. We're not necessarily going to do that. Russia is not abandoning Assad in any way. Putin has made much too big an investment in Syria, but he's letting Assad know. And third, it's a shot across America's bow. America does not want to work with Russia and Assad. That was one of the things I think that Putin wanted to get done in Syria, is to establish some sort of cooperation. And just yesterday, Putin announced that he wanted to work with Russia to take Raqqa back, the capital of ISIS. What do you make of the statement that Russia's goals have been achieved, that is the mission accomplished part of this? He went in to shore up the Syrian government, to shore up Assad. Has he done so? Is the Assad regime stronger today than it was last summer? Landis, it's a lot stronger. Russia really turned the balance of power. Assad was struggling. Now he's been on the offensive and the rebels are in chaos. They've been back on their heels, they're fighting against each other. There's real depression among rebel ranks, so in that sense the regime is solid. I'll put up a photograph of a Russian soldier guarding a jet parked at Haimin Air Base in Syria. Take you back to something I wrote on the 5th of October 2015, when I said Putin is a geopolitical grandmaster. And I was saying, he's always been considered a grandmaster of geopolitics, but of late he's been under tremendous pressure by the oil warfare specialist, President Obama. The wrestling of the oil price from above $100 to below $50 a barrel was always intended to wither Russia's power and send it into a tailspin. And then I said I'd turn to the United Nations General Assembly, where Putin set out his stall, and I quote, I cannot help asking those who have caused the situation, do you now realize what you've done? I'll put up a photograph of Assad and Putin, and I wonder how Bashar feels about the exit. Don't trust Putin's Syria pullback. This is an article in Bloomberg View. Putin's official explanation of the supposed withdrawal, which should start Tuesday, is that he considers the tasks set for the defense ministry mainly carried out. The Russian military has allowed Syrian troops and the patriotic forces of Syria to achieve a radical breakthrough in the fight against international terrorism and gain the initiative on practically every front. He's not wrong about the latter. Emboldened and aided by Russian airstrikes against the regime's opponents, Assad's forces have been gaining ground since the start of this year, yet they haven't captured the all-important city of Aleppo or dealt any spectacular defeats to any of the bigger insurgent groups, including the Islamic State. Radical breakthrough is an exaggeration. Saying, I hope today's decision will be a good signal for all the sides of the conflict. I hope this will significantly increase the trust of all participants in the process. It's an interesting development. I don't think he's withdrawing completely. I think he's making a bold statement at the beginning of these peace talks. Let's see what happens. But he did make a decisive intervention. It's interesting that Landis thinks that the rebels have been routed. Some Syrian children have known nothing but war, said UN Special Envoy Stefan de Mistura. Kim Jong-Un has made further bellicose comments. Let's see what's happening there, but obviously he considers 300,000 South Koreans and 23,500 Americans conducting operations on the Korean Peninsula a provocation. Being paranoid, like I'm sure he is, the provocation is probably multiplied. 5 years after Fukushima, people still don't really talk about the story of massive contamination. Trump aims for big primary wins, calls campaign a love fest. Yes, right. Currency markets, the euro 110.87, dollar index 96.60, Japanese yen 113.14, that's strengthening. Swissy 0.9867, the pound 142.50, the Aussie 0.7477, India rupee 67.225, South Korean won 11.8624, the real, that's an interesting story all of its own, 3.66, backing up off a 2016 high, Egyptian pound 894.72, and the rand 15.54, it looked expensive, around 15.20. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. I remain bullish, and I think it just takes one hawkish statement to get the dollar going again. The dollar, Bloomberg dollar spot index rose 0.4% yesterday. Traders are pricing in little chance of a Fed rate increase on Wednesday, but they've boosted bets on a move happening later in the year. Fed funds futures show the probability of a June increase is now about 50%. Dollar yen, my target remains 105. Look at this 1-year chart, we're now at 113.13. Japanese recession looming, 2 to 10 yield curve now only 12 basis points, the difference between the two, close to inverting for the first time since 1991. Commodity markets, gold was up 19% since the start of the year through yesterday, and still is on pace for its biggest quarterly gain since 1986, but took a bit of a dip yesterday. We're now trading at 1228.85. Crude oil, that's back down quite dramatically. I'll put up a 5-day chart, now trading below $38 a barrel in New York. Gotten overcooked, gotten overexcited. The Russian ruble decouples from oil on news that Putin's order made part of forces in Syria to start their pull-out. Have a look at that chart. Former Brazilian President Lula is to become a minister, according to the BBC, and apparently that will give him some protection from prosecution. The real looks a sell to me. I'll put up a 1-year chart. It's had a good rebound, but really the news isn't that great. The economy is contracting. People on the streets. Mauritius, an Indian Ocean island with a $12 billion economy, is ranked by the United Nations as Africa's most developed economy. Ivory Coast gunmen drank beer in a bar before attack on a resort. That's extraordinary. Al-Qaeda's North African branch drank beer at a beachside bar before launching an attack. Sunday's raid, the details of which are beginning to emerge, was the furthest yet from Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb's traditional desert base, a worrying indication of the militant's growing reach. put up a photograph. A police cordon is seen while Ivorian police prepare to inspect the area of the Hotel Etoile du Sud, and a security officer walks on the beach after an attack in Grand Bassam, Ivory Coast. The issue isn't that Eskom has magically turned around. The issue is that demand has fundamentally collapsed. This is because we're not getting any power cuts now in South Africa, and are basically saying that if the commodity situation remains for next year as well, then we'll see the likelihood of power cuts next year significantly diminished as well. Power generated by Eskom's plants fell to the lowest since 2006. We've seen a drop in terms of demand, but it's not drastic, said the Eskom spokesman. But this is largely compensated through purchases by neighbouring countries. Eskom has agreed to sell power to Zambia and Zimbabwe. Investors and ratings agencies are observing every development in South Africa with a keen eye. That's Pravin Gordhan. Once again, the hawks and those who instruct them have no regard for the economic and social welfare of millions. This is the national interest issue. I wrote about Old Mutual seeking its own breakout but spinning off its 54% controlling stake in Nedbank Group. And I said that is in essence the second exit out of South Africa, Barclays being the first. South African all shares at a 4-month closing high, up 3.51% this year. Dollar rand, I think the rand had gotten overcooked near 15.20 and is going back to 16. Egypt moved and adopted a more flexible exchange rate and devalued the pound 13%. The regulator earlier sold $198.1 million to local lenders at £8.85 per dollar. Previous exchange rate was 7.73. There's a big dollar squeeze in the Egyptian economy. Foreign currency reserves have tumbled by more than 50% since 2011. There they have stabilized at just over $16 billion in the past 6 months. Have a look at this Egyptian pound chart, which shows you the devaluation that is from zero hedge, and then look at the stock market response. The stock market, the EGX 30, rallied a mighty 6.7% yesterday and is now at scratch for the year. Going to Nigeria, I wrote about this again. I said the president is fixated and I expect Nigeria's GDP to be at 0% through 2016. Only one MPC policy committee member, Mr. Salami, said the Naira should be devalued. Not a single other person agreed, which speaks to, I think, the control that President Buhari has. I said the Naira trades some 40% below the official rate on the black market versus the dollar. That confirms the current official rate is a Mickey Mouse price. Nigerian all share down 9.74% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 1.94% this year. Have a look at my piece, how Barclays may be the first of many South African exits. Over the weekend, I said here in Nairobi, we find ourselves slap bang in the middle of the earnings season. The banks have been reporting their full year earnings and positive price reaction confirm that investors have become too bearish. And we have seen some shapely rallies develop after these releases. KCB has definitely hurdled 40, Diamond Trust closed at 2016 high, and then I pointed out that the fact that Diamond Trust's loan book had overtaken Barclays by quite a margin, 177.54 billion versus 145.38 billion. I spoke about Bamburi Cement posting a big outsized full year profit after tax gain. And I said on balance, earnings in the Nairobi Securities Exchange about performed expectation. And I also was saying that I expect Nairobi to outperform Lagos and Johannesburg this year. You probably know about Kenya shilling 101.50. Nairobi all share climbed 0.2% yesterday. It's still negative 0.3% for the year. NSE 20 is negative 2.17% for the year. Trans-Century has retreated 31.51% so far this year, but they issued an announcement today where they said Kuramo Capital is ready to invest $20 million as equity. I tweeted that's the equivalent of pulling the rabbit out of a hat. Barclays Kenya, that's been in retreat this year. It's down 13.97%. Co-op Bank firm 1.25% to close at a fresh 6-month high. It's rallied 12.5% this year. Canol Cobalt at a 6-month high, up 14.0625% this year. Kengen up 11.26% this year. Standard Chartered closed at an 8-week high. That's up 7.17% this year. We already spoke about Limuru Tea, and really it's more of a real estate play. They own 275 hectares of tea land situated 4 kilometers to the east of the Limuru town. Market cap is £1 billion. That equates to 3.665 million per hectare, which is cheap. Safaricom, I think, will test 2016 highs of 17 in short order. KCB, Citibank put out this price target of 58. I think they're not wrong. Barclays we've already spoken about. Diageo's John O'Keefe, who's the president for Africa, he's speaking of continuing growing net sales at low double digits, mainly as a result of a resurgence in Senator Kate's care. Transcentury we just spoke about. Have a look at the official announcement that's on the front of bridge.co.ke. Once again, thank you for stopping by.